I am here with one of our 6 partners and arguably one of, if not the best estate agent or real estate agent that Dubai has to offer.
I think I became a branch manager at 23 years old.
I've never seen nothing like it in anyone in my life.
You've got to love your product. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed.
It's hard to do though, isn't it?
Rome wasn't built in a day.
One thing that strikes me, Daz, is that how obsessed you become over something.
But I am a bit over the top in terms of how perfect I want things to be.
I think people don't see the amount of rejection that you will get, probably more than anyone else.
I'll tell you a story. It's a bit embarrassing, but I'll tell it to you. I got a bit emotional and I was like, I can't do this.
How does the next 5 years look for you?
I have a certain figure, so that's something that I'm hell-bent on at the moment. Now I want the best possible team.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Taking Care of Business. I am here with one of our 6 partners and arguably one of, if not the best estate agent or real estate agent that Dubai has to offer. I think that's correct?
Big call, that. Big call.
I think it's, a lot of people would say that's true, definitely. You've been with us for 14 years now, Daz. And I remember the first time that you came in and I think we started in Dubai Marina lettings. Where did it all start before? Tell us a little bit of a journey before you came to join us in Allsopp Allsopp.
Yeah, so basically I was working in the UK for Bridgeford's Countrywide. I think I became a branch manager at 23 years old, which is quite young in England to take that role. There's a couple of things missing. First of all, as a manager over there, it's very much you go out to meet the client, gain the listing, and then it gets passed on to the negotiators to sort of take it on and sell the property. So I did miss that element of selling, although it was fun getting the listing, getting it on the market, but then it was over to them to sell, which I kind of love being involved in that element, so I missed that. And then the office was just doing so well, but over there it was a case of 18,000 basic pounds a year, which is what, 7,000 dirhams a month over here. And then 4% was the commission override on any property sold. So when I stepped back and looked at what the office was earning and how well we were doing and what I was earning, and I looked at the cost of living in England, et cetera, I was like, this doesn't stack up. There's something not right here. So I started to have a little look online, and then I saw the advert, moved to Dubai, 250,000 a year, tax-free. So
Did you believe that at the time?
No, I mean, anything you see online, you take it with a pinch of salt, don't
Yeah.
you? But I thought I'll reach out. And then I spoke to Carl, who's obviously an owner of the company. And I said to Soph and the family, they're either on the biggest wind-up of all time or this is a genuine opportunity.
Yeah.
And having spoke to him, I was struggling to believe it was completely made up. Obviously, it's hard work and things like that. But
Do you think at the time, Carl, it was the things that he was saying, do you thought that they could come to fruition, or do you think the things he was saying were a little bit far-fetched at the time? What was your thoughts around that?
Yeah, back then, from the salary I was earning to then be told you could earn £20,000 a month in your pocket, I didn't believe that. But I did believe it was an opportunity of sorts. And at the time, Sophie just finished university. I'd already done all the travelling with the lads because I was 4 years older. Yeah. So I kind of took it as, look, we'll go with £3,000, give it a go for a year. If we lose £3,000, we've travelled for a year and we've ticked a box. So we just took a punt and went for it. But the interesting thing was, a week before we took the final decision, the company that were our competition back then were Gascoigne Horman. The owner of that company asked to meet me at a hotel near the airport. So I went to meet him. Bearing in mind I was on 18,000, he offered me 40,000 basic, an Audi, bearing in mind I was in a Corsa, and then 25% profit share in the Wilmslow branch.
To look after the team.
To run an office in the Wilmslow branch. Bear in mind I was in a smaller village. So it really shook us up last minute and I nearly didn't do it. But what I did, I came to Dubai and kept in contact with the owner of that particular company
just in case
for several months, just in case, because I was obviously nervous what could play out.
When you got over here, where was you living first when you got over here?
We started back then. The company put everyone in the Winchester in Bur Dubai,
yeah.
which is actually good fun because
Did
everyone.
Soph follow you over? She was
Yeah,
come over the same time, yeah?
we came together,
Yeah.
and everyone who was new back then went to the same place to
remember,
start.
yeah.
So we're all in the same boat. Had a pool on the rooftop, so it's quite.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a studenty sort of setup. Everyone's together, so it was good fun.
So then when you started with the business, obviously there was only, at the time, it was 14 years ago, must have been about 30, 40 people max, if that?
Oh, less than that, I would say. We're in the villa in Jumeirah.
Yeah.
So we had like
So would
three.
have been that? Would have been 15, 20 people, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we basically had a lounge, a dining room, 3 bedrooms upstairs, and
Yeah.
we're all between it.
And you started in Lettons, didn't you? The Marina Lettons.
Starting Dubai Marina.
How did that happen then? So obviously at the time it was Lewis and Carl who were looking after, and Nick was looking after the shop. So did you ask to be put into Dubai Marina, or did they just put you into Dubai Marina?
Honestly, 14 years down the line, I can't remember properly, but I remember feeling Dubai Marina was a prominent area. I think I had my own sort of Dubai Marina or downtown.
Yeah.
So I was happy with the area I got placed in the end. And we did end up renting a property there after about 9 months of being here.
Yeah. I remember because there was someone else who was working in Green Community at the time, weren't they? And I think we identified, I think at the time that we moved to Golden Diamond Park, and then you were really prominent in Dubai Marina Lettings. I remember that from the get-go. And then there was an opportunity came in GC, and at the time there was a girl who was working there who was quite prominent in GC, and then we put you in. And the lady at the time, she was really, really good. And it was a challenge for you. And I always say, when we get new starters in, I always come up with the same objections that the objections that you were getting were more. There was more objections in Green Community than any other community in the whole of Dubai. A, it was leasehold. B, it was miles away from anywhere else. So you had to all of a sudden adjust from an area where it was so high in volume and transient to an area where people didn't even know where it was at times. But you made it your own. And I remember you going into that team and slowly but surely, I'm not saying you pushed that person out, but because that person was so prominent in the area, it was almost like you'd see what was happening because you came and you made it your own. Do you remember what was going through your head when we put you in GC, and did you think it was going to work in Green Community, or what was your immediate thoughts when we put you in there?
Yeah, I mean, the lady at the time working the area, she really encouraged me to come across, and I was concerned because it's a leasehold community.
Yeah.
I think it's the only leasehold community in Dubai. So, but yeah, we just had to take on the positives. Obviously, Green Community, it's very green, very lush. And the fact that it was leasehold meant it was a smaller entry point. So we had to play on the benefits. But I did love the area. Like, I think I've been lucky because I've been in Dubai Marina, which I enjoyed. We bought there. And then Green Community, which I really like the greenery. I like the layouts of that community. And now I'm in, obviously, Jumeirah Golf Estates, which I absolutely love to pieces. So I think the key thing is whatever area you're doing, you need to love it, because if you don't love it, then I think you're not going to give it your all and really be able to sell it to the best of your ability.
Before to go back onto that, I want to go back to the office environment. What is the difference between the office environment now to what it is today? Because a lot of people go back to, obviously we're up to 550, 600 people. At the time we were only 15, 20 people. But a lot of people always say when we went, especially went to Golden Diamond Park, it was a family feel. Everyone knew who each other was. It was not more of a camaraderie, but it was a completely different feel. So going back to what you were saying with regards to loving your area, and obviously you've loved, even when you started with Dubai Marina, and then you moved on to GC, and now obviously to Jumeirah Golf Estates. I was getting asked the questions yesterday about your style and your personality, and I obviously know you're outside of work. And one thing that strikes me more than probably any person that I've met, not just in work, but I mean in life, is how obsessed you are, how obsessed and how passionate you are about something to make it your own. And GC was exactly that. When when you went in, no one else was really doing it. Obviously, we were doing it internally, but no one else was doing it outside of Allsopp and Allsopp. And then lo and behold, as time went on, more and more people seeing you become quite successful in there. And what happens, everyone jumps on the bandwagon. But one thing that strikes me, Daz, is that how obsessed you become over something. Do you think that can become quite a hindrance at times? I know obsession is very, very good and passionate is very, very good, but sometimes you can be over obsessive to a point where it's like it can, not that it can consume you, but I've never seen nothing like it in anyone in my life. And no matter if it's in work or professionally or whether it's just outside of work, has that always been you since you were a kid?
It's a good question whether it's been like that since I've been a kid, but it's definitely an issue in one. It works for me very well in some ways because I want everything to be perfect. But then there is times when maybe we go and stay at a hotel or we go for a dinner, and if it's not perfect,
Yeah.
obviously I have a bit of an issue with it. Whereas really, you should be like, well, look, we've got an amazing life. We're lucky to off- have this food or whatever. But I am a bit over the top in terms of how perfect I want things to be. But at the same time, I think if we're not striving for things to be perfect, then things will slip. So it works well in some areas, but then in other areas, I can see, especially with sometimes you can get very frustrated because I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Do you think that has an impact on you being number one in terms of not just you, just anyone in general, whether it be a sportsman, whether it be in real estate? Do you think you have to be obsessed to borderline where it becomes a bit of a, not an illness, but it becomes a worry to be the best at what you do?
Yeah, I do. I've seen it obviously with Rob, one of my best mates. He
Mm.
came over. He's the same. His brother's just come over. He has this winning mentality,
Yeah.
and look how well he's doing. So there's many positives to it, but I think we do need to be conscious that it could become an issue because you can't obviously be at 1,000,000% your whole life. And obviously, I'm turning to an old man now, so it's
Yeah.
catching up with me a bit. So it is a valid thing, but I think whilst doing this job, if you want to be in that top 10% and get the rewards of the great money that is available to people, you've got to be like really, really at it.
And I think where you are based now in Jumeirah Golf Estates, again, it was another area, if you remember, where there was not many companies that were doing it, with the exception of one or two. And now it's like anything. It's like a good football team when they're perched at the top, like let's say a Man City or someone like that. The hardest thing to do is stay at the top. And obviously, you've got to be innovating. You've got to be forward thinking in every way, everything that we do now to stay at that level. And I think the obsessed side of things can only help because, like I say, everyone's they're trying to knock you off your perch, aren't they?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to just being in love with an area. Like when Jumeirah Golf Estates came online in 2014, about a year before, I noticed it, I
Yeah,
spotted it, and I fell in love with it.
yeah.
And I wanted to make that area my specialist. Some people say to me, like, oh, you're a great salesperson, this and that. I don't think I'm a salesperson because a salesperson can sell anything. I'm obviously a level of salesperson, but the key thing with me is I love Jumeirah Golf Estates. I've bought there, so I've put my money where my mouth is. So I think there's more to it than that, but it does come down to whatever sales role or industry you're in, you've got to love your product. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed.
And again, we preach this to every new starter that comes in, and I'll always say, well, obviously we have 2 batches of new starters every single month, and I always believe that our top 3 performers in the company, if we put them in our 3 least performing areas, I think within 2 or 3 years they would be up there in the top performers just because of how much they would make it their own. And what I see in you, Daz, I was going to go on to something else here, but I'm going to go back a little bit, where your story is when you almost go on a journey with clients. It's like you go on a journey with clients, and you go on a journey with even with your peers, your brokers, and you've done it to me, whereby you've tried to sell me something, and at the end of the conversation, I believe it. I'm not saying that you're doing it for like a sales pitch, but I've heard you on the phone as well with clients, and obviously we live where we live. And the amount of times when you're going up to the clubhouse and before you sit down and have a drink or have a bit of dinner, there's 4 or 5 people who are coming over to you and just speaking to you as if we're speaking now as mates. Is that also, going back to obviously being obsessed and being passionate, do you believe that is also a massive recipe as well to have that relationship with your clients, especially in such a tight-knit community like Jumeirah Golf Estates?
Yeah, and any advice that I've ever given a client over the years is my genuine, truthful advice. Like, there's been multiple occasions I've advised sellers not to sell. I mean, I'd assume in the market 90% of the time that just wouldn't happen. But if I really believe it's not necessarily the right moment, don't get me wrong, there'll be instances where a client needs to sell or we might make a decision and it does go the other way. But on the whole, I have advised people what I think is best for them at that time. And on the whole, everyone's happy and I have a long-term relationship with, which is why I get a lot of repeat business at this point. And it can be annoying if I go up to the clubhouse and have breakfast or whatever and social, like, your family's here and I've got clients all the time. But I think I'd rather have it like that and have that open, transparent understanding with all my clients and relationships.
It's hard to do though, isn't it? It's really hard
Yeah.
to do. And when you're trying, obviously, when we're in training with our new brokers and you're trying to install that into them, it's really, really hard because obviously obviously you've been with us for 14 years now, so people might say, well, it's easy for Darren because he's been on a community for the last 8, 9, 10 years, but it started somewhere.
You've got to have a long-term view.
Yeah.
I think some agents come over here thinking, oh, I can earn X amount of money in a short period, but I've been here 14 years.
Yeah.
You build yourself up and you've got to find that community you're going to embed yourself in with for a decade at least to come and just work yourself up. It'll take time. So taking time is giving honest, transparent advice. That deal that you're desperate to do today, you might do a deal with that client in 2 years.
Yeah.
But the key thing is at that point, you're advising and looking after them correctly on the basis that you will do a deal eventually. So you've got to be really long-term minded if you want to be successful in this job
And
over the long run.
I think that falls into discipline as well, isn't it? How do you, doing this job for so long, I think there's two aspects to this question. How do you stay disciplined in this job? Because the next question I'm going to go on to is the rejection. And I think people don't see the amount of rejection that you will get. It's probably more than anyone else. But first of all, your discipline towards the role, whether that be what you do in the morning times, whether not just in work, outside of work. How do you stay disciplined to be able to be at the forefront of what you do day in, day out? Is there specific things that you have daily that you do?
I think first and foremost, what I'm trying to do at the moment is train in the morning 4 times a week.
Yep.
I've realised that I can't train in the afternoon because the job is excessive. It's a lot of work, and come the evening, unless it's a game of paddle or football, which I really enjoy, I need to train in the morning 4 times a week. So trying to do that 6 till 7 where I can, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I absolutely hate training. I have no enjoyment in burpees, assault bikes, ski urges. I don't want to do it. But you have to keep in your mind that feel-good factor at the end, which then kickstarts your day brilliantly. So I think that's one point. And then going into the job in terms of discipline, I just think what I've learned or taught myself over the years is I will contact owners, obviously, because that's part of the job, but contact them with things they want to hear. Like, for example, you're an owner in a certain community. If there's been a rental or a sale of particular note, give you a call, let you know, give things. Not be like, are you looking to buy?
Just
or
simple
sell?
stuff.
Just simple stuff. I try and stay disciplined in terms of keeping my clients and owners up to date with relevant market information. And when they're ready to speak to me and to do something, they'll then reach out. So,
do you think when you're doing that, because again, I've told you so many times, there's things I still install into our managers, into our brokers about what you do, and it's very basic stuff. We've got all of this equipment here, we've got technology coming out of our ears, but the basics and the fundamentals of this job will never ever change. Educating people, making sure people are aware of what, like you say, you've taught me a 10-tell, tell 10 people either side of each house, and you'll still do it to this day. What's your advice to people coming in today, new starters or new brokers or a young Darren Murphy coming in today? What would be your advice to them to get off to a good start and start making traction within this business?
just mainly that it does take time. Rome wasn't built in a day. So when we actually came to Dubai, I'll tell you a story. It's a bit embarrassing, but I'll tell it to you. I was in Dubai Marina, and on the 3rd day, I went to do a viewing with a client, and I was stood there waiting for the client. They were 15 minutes late, and I looked up. Bear in mind, I'm not really a city guy, like a stay local, never go into Manchester much. I'm not really a city centre sort of person, so I'm not used to a major city. And I got a bit emotional, and I was like, I can't do this. It's not for me. And I went home that night and I said, we're going back. This was 3 days in. And Sophie taught me around. She said, don't be so stupid. You're going to be amazing, blah, 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 blah. And thank God she did, because look at the rewards eventually. So my first point is be patient. Pick an area that you love. If you don't love it, make yourself love it and figure out the reasons why it's a good area to buy, why you would buy there. And obviously you can instill that in your clients going forward. If you can't find that, move areas. Once you found the area that you love, just keep gradually keeping your sellers informed with quality information. And eventually, once your deals start and you build that traction, people will start to come to you. But it's a long-term gain. If you're not coming here with a 10-year minimum plan to make an area your own, then it's not going to be the right job for you. It takes time, and the rewards will come. So I think that's the key thing. There used to be days where I'd go home, I'd made 100 phone calls, and I'd be annoyed on the way home thinking I've not got anything out of the day, but be following up. If they don't answer the phone, follow up with a message, updating them of a sale that's just happened in the tower. Give them something, so at least you're getting something out there.
Do you still get them days now where you'll have a bad day and nothing is going right, whether it be an offer that you've had and it's never come to fruition, or you've had no meaningful conversations? Do you still have them every day? Or
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I try and explain to my staff, just try and get 20 to 30 things out there a day, something new. One might be a viewing, one might be telling a client about this property, one might be telling something about a property that's sold. But as long as you're getting 20 to 30 relevant interactions out a day over the course of a year, that is absolutely huge. The worst thing you can do is go home and you've done nothing. You've just plodded through the motions.
Your team does in Jumeirah Golf Estates. Now, I know firsthand just what they think of you. Do you feel that your obsessive demands on yourself is transformed into them in what they do on a daily basis? I know the answer to this, but do you think that without you like grilling them or sitting them down or going through specific things on a daily basis, do you think that you're more of a leader, a coach, a developer, or a manager? And do you think that your beliefs and probably your non-negotiables transform into your team?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a great manager in terms of aggressive follow-up,
Yep.
do this, do this, do this. I would like to think I'm a leader by example. And I expect people to do things because I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So if they see me doing it, i.e. true checks or this or that, if I want people to do something, I'll lead by example and hope they follow me. And the people that follow me, I would hope would do well. And there'll be some people who they're just not up to it, or for whatever reason. So I think I'm definitely more of a leader by example rather than a, follow-up manager on someone's back 24/7.
It's funny, Dan, is it? Because I think we have probably 12 to 14 managers within the business, and every single one of them manages in a completely different way. You manage differently to Rob will manage differently to Dan Maloney, and so on and so forth. But it all works in a weird little way.
Yeah.
But I think it's that element, is the respect thing. I remember when I first became a manager, and my biggest objective was when I took over from the previous guy, and it was always, I want the team to respect me and buy into me as what they did with him. And hopefully that happened. But I think it's the same with every one of our managers. They have that leadership skills, that coaching skills, like you, where they follow and they find the way. And like you say, you're definitely a leader, 100% a leader, without sitting people down and going through them. They know what they need to do. It's just about them following you. Dealing with rejection. How do you do that? Because like I said before, you probably deal with it more than anyone else. And how do you become resilient to that day in, day out when you've been doing a job for such a long time?
Yeah, it's a funny one with this job because obviously sometimes you'll lose a listing and things like that, and I'll really eat myself up. And why has that happened?
Yeah.
With the top market share in the area, we've got the office in the area, live in the area. I'm thinking on paper, I'm a great fit to list the property for someone. And we've had to put up with a lot of things over the years because obviously agents, and rightly so, are coming for us. So they've used several tactics over the years.
Yeah.
One not so long ago was Allsopp and Allsopp want to sell at the lowest possible price,
Yeah.
which is ludicrous when most of our directors live in Jumeirah Golf Estates, so we actually want things to sell as high as possible. The latest one is that Darren hasn't got time to look after your listing because I've got obviously more listings, whereas my comeback is by having the majority of listings, we get the most leads, which is proven.
It's always
It's
I've,
always like,
I've never understood that why people badmouth other people. I've never understood that
yeah,
at all. Because there's enough to go around, isn't he? No matter what area you're in, there's enough to go around. And I think buyers and sellers will always see past that as well, Daz, won't they?
yeah.
They always see past that.
So in terms of rejection, that's probably the toughest rejection is losing listings. But on the whole, I've been very lucky.
Mm.
Been very lucky because I've done well. The company's done well. I work in a great area, so I've been quite lucky on the whole. But yeah, just obviously losing them listings is tough to take.
How does, I've got 14 years out here. 14 years out here. They've been the best 14 years, in my opinion. How does the next 5 years look for you, would you say, from a professional and a personal viewpoint?
It's a tough one to answer. I just want to really try and maintain the level that we're at
Mm.
and give the best service we possibly can. And the big thing for me is with my team, I don't really care about individual results in terms of excitement. What I love more than anything, I have a certain figure minimum that I want everyone to achieve on the board that they all know. And the best months for me is when all my team are above that number. That's what gives me the most enjoyment. So that's something that I'm hell bent on at the moment. In the past, we've sort of brought people in and taken, not taken whoever, but we've not thought about necessarily. Now I want the best possible team, and I want them all at a certain level.
I think that's what you're the best at. Is obviously your own personal gain is of paramount importance. But I've never met anyone in my life who is probably more generous and thinks about other people more than you. And like you say, that I think it's fitting that we end on this, is that the fact that you have drove our Jumeirah golf business, our Jumeirah golf office, to one of, if not the best performing departments in our business, and that's all down to you, mate. It really, really is. And I think, like you say, the question that I asked you for the next 4 or 5 years, I hope you're still with us. I'm sure you will be, because you've got a massive, massive part to play. I still believe in this company, mate, and you're a credit to work with, and you're an absolute asset to the company. So thank you for everything, mate, and thank you for coming on today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bud. Thank you.
Cheers.